Alright, I think we're making this one away. I think give it enough. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gamify Your Classroom. My name is Anthony, and today you're not going to need a laptop for anything specific about the talk. If you want to take notes, feel free to. I do have a link to a Google Share Drive which has some of the things which I'll be talking about here in that Google Share Drive. If you go to the link on the bottom left here, which is bit.ly/GameSpot18, you'll find that there is a folder there that has a couple of shared documents and things that we'll be able to use. And feel free to take anything from there as well to use in your actual classrooms as well. So this is going to be a talk just a bit more about the culture of the classroom and how we currently go about getting kids engaged and things like that, as the tagline will kind of give you a hint towards. But before we get to that whole point of it, first I'd like to just introduce myself first. As I said, by day, my name is Anthony, and I am the IT manager over at St Francis Catholic College out of Edmondson Park. We're a K-12 school. We currently have a K through Year 8, but eventually we will be through K through Year 12, and we will have laptops in the hands of everybody from Year 5 upwards. So we're going to be looking at probably over 1,600 laptops in the school in about 4 years' time from there. Not only that, so as I'm the IT manager, I spend most of my day fixing those things. But not only that, I also am the web developer, so I also look at a lot of code as well from a day-to-day basis, which can get very boring from time to time. I also fix a lot of these things, especially a lot of iPads in our junior school from K to 4, because we have 150 of them spread across the school at the moment. And also anything Google related, I'm going to be your first port of call. I also once had to fix one of these things, mainly because I think I had a plug working, but we'll get onto that different thing. By night, however, I am an actor, I'm a husband and I'm a father, I'm also a family IT guy, but I'm also a gamer. I'm a very big one at that, okay? These are some of the games that I currently play. I just surpassed 1,500 hours logged into Rocket League at the moment, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. This is how much I've spent on my game collection over the past 7 years. Apparently that's just my virtual currency there. And that's US dollars as well, not Australian dollars. It's actually nothing compared to my board game collection though. That's when I did a tally of it about 2 weeks ago. That's apparently how much I spent in the last 5 years on that. I like to share my passion as well. This is a couple of pictures of my family and friends getting together for an event that I held earlier in the year called International Tabletop Day, where we played games for about 12 hours. This is a photo of my YouTube channel where I post edited versions of my Let's Plays. This is me streaming games live to the internet on Twitch TV. This is my mate Danny and myself recording a podcast where we talk about gaming news related stuff. This is me also commentating on the games called esports, which are professional games in Australia. So I've had the pleasure of being flown around Australia to do that. So it's safe to say that I am a gamer. But the thing is, you may be looking at me going, wow, you've done a lot of stuff. But the thing is, I'd like to give you a little bit of information about the average Australian gamer. You see, every 2 years, Bond University, in conjunction with the Interactive Games and Entertainment Association, do what's called the Digital Australia Report. The last one got released about 4 to 5 months ago, and in this report they have a look at the digital tendencies of us in the household, Australians in the household. And they focus a big portion of it on games. They actually focus on 4 main pillars in this report. The pillars are the function, which is how do we play things. They focus on the why, which is the motive, why do we play games. They also focus on the intention, which is the what are we doing with games, and the advantage, what are the benefits of this, or the well-being as it's also referred to as. Now I'm not going to go through the whole thing about it, but I would like to show you some highlighted stats from having gone through it and had a look at it. The first thing is that in a household, if you have a child at home, there is a 97% chance that you've got a gaming console in your house. This includes computers, iPads, mobiles, consoles, anything like that. And even if you don't have kids, there's an 80% chance that you've got at least 2 devices in your house. So it's safe to say that pretty much everyone's going to be having gaming consoles in their house in the future. But looking at the who, what you may be interested to know is that actually a total of 67% of all Australians say that they play video games. 46% of that, so half of them are female, which kind of goes against what you may think of this as a boys' club. It actually turns out that half of the people surveyed also were women and they said they were gamers. Moving on from that though, the average age of the gamer is actually 34 years old. That's the average age of a gamer in Australia, not a teenager as you may be thinking. And 77% of people who say they play video games are actually over the age of 18 and adults in the world. So looking at that, you kind of start to get a picture of that. We're not actually talking about teens, but this is going to be something that starts from a young age and will continue on through their daily lives. But why do they play? Well, under 18 kids say that they do it just to pass time, to have fun. Working adults say that they do it to de-stress and also to have fun, which kind of links into each other. And finally, you've got the retirees, the greater than 55s, and you actually find out that what they're doing is they do it to pass the time, but more interestingly, they do it to keep an active mind, to kind of keep themselves alert and going through. And that leads into the well-being, which is that 84% of people would say that having played games improves their thinking skills. It seems that they keep more engaged with it. But also, of the older generation, 80% of them think that that it's leading to help fight the early onset dementia and all that kind of stuff, which studies are actually starting to prove at the moment as well. So the takeaway from this, and this is the snapshot of that whole report, which you can find in that Google Drive, is essentially that it's as many girls as boys playing games, so it's going to be basically your whole classroom, and that gaming doesn't leave when we enter a certain age bracket. That every household in Australia is basically going to have this ingrained into their culture. So with that in mind, what I would like to start moving ahead on is we're going to get into the three big things about gamification in this talk. The three big things we're going to have a look at, well, first of all, what is it, quite simply. The second thing is why this is going to be important for you in the classroom. The third thing is, well, we're going to have a look at some ways that you can implement it into your classroom. Okay? So, first of all, we're going to have the quick definition of gamification is what it actually is. So what is gamification? Well, gamification is the use of the principles of play to engage students and and change their learning behaviours in the classroom. That's what we're ultimately trying to do here as part of gamification. So why does this matter though? Why are we even thinking about this and having to do it? Well, we are actually currently in a little bit thinking about what I would like to call, we're in a bit of a crisis at the moment in our classrooms. And this is, you may use a different word, but I call it a crisis of engagement at the moment. So, you know, the thing is we don't talk to each other like we used to, and we also don't view the world like we used to as well. I mean, just as a quick side, how many of you watched TV in the last month whilst having a phone in your hand browsing the internet? Right? I'm sure we've all done it, I totally do it, but the thing is this didn't happen 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago or 50 years ago. So like just think about how crazy it is that we distract ourselves, we used to distract ourselves by saying the TV, but now we distract ourselves with the phone to distract ourselves from the TV, which is used to distract ourselves from, like, this is the age that where kids are being brought up in. So how many times though in the classroom do you see this kind of this thing where the kids just start zoning out and they just start, oh look at that, the light changed up there, that's pretty cool. Like they just start zoning out, that kind of stuff, right? So it's kind of hard, it's a hard truth that we kind of have to face it at the moment. But the truth is school is boring. It kind of is boring in some lessons. Now that's not saying that you're boring, that unfortunately school at its core, at its culture, is boring. Also, it hasn't really changed that much. Now, I went into Google Images and I typed old-timey classroom, and that's one of the first images that came up. I also went into Google and I said modern classroom, and that's what came up. Now, granted, taking away the chalkboard, we obviously have better technology, like obviously laptops in our classrooms, projectors, TV screens, all that stuff. But at its core, at its culture, school really hasn't changed that much. I mean, think about it every day. Go to your desk. Be quiet, do your work, here's the project, thank you very much, here's your grade, good luck next year. Kind of, it's the same routine over and over again, at no fault of anyone but the system that we're in. So this is the way that it's kind of been for the last 30 years and even more, but whereas games, this is what they looked like 30 years ago, and this is kind of what they're looking like today. The jump, granted again, I know this is only at the surface, but kids are growing up today with these things already ingrained in their household as we went through. I mean, the popularity of gaming has grown exponentially over the past 10 to 15 years. It's now a multi-billion-dollar industry in Australia alone. Australia, we now have actually a booming game industry, and this is something which kids basically want to do. I mean, who here knows what this game here on the right is? Does anyone know? Fortnite, exactly right. Now, you may not have known it by the image, but you may have heard about this because it's actually entered the mainstream over the past couple of months due to kids wanting to play. There was that 60 Minutes special a couple of months ago where the kids who were playing games and things like that. So it's making the mainstream. So here's just another site. How many active players do you think Fortnite had in June of this year? 1 million? 2? 10? Actually 125 million active players in June of this year, worldwide. That's a lot of people, and I tell you, I was one of them. I was playing with my friends and my family, and I guarantee you most of you students were playing it too. For a number of reasons, like it's free to play and things, but we'll get to some other things. So if we can get our kids as excited to learn as we can get them to play this Battle Royale Fortnite game here, then obviously we're going to be doing a good job. So that's what we're trying to move ourselves towards. So we need to ask ourselves what it is that games are doing that makes them wanting to pick up the controller or sit down at the keyboard, and what it is they're doing. And it comes down to a couple of overarching systems. The first of it being is what's called the dopamine engagement loop. Now, who here has actually heard of what dopamine is, this chemical? Has anyone heard of this before? A couple around? Yeah, so this is, basically, for those of you who don't know, dopamine is basically a pleasure drug that our brain emits when we feel accomplished or we've done a challenge. Science tells us that when you get set a challenge and you accomplish that challenge, your brain releases this little chemical called dopamine, and yay, oh great, you feel good, you did it, good job, you're great. And that's this feeling that this drug emits. This is the same drug that you hear about when people have a runner's high. It's also the same drug you hear about with gambling addiction, when people get that win and they're looking for that next hit, that next good win. Gaming takes full effect of this dopamine drug. In the real world, there's actually very few times that we actually get this dopamine hit, other than a couple that I just kind of told you about. And the thing is, school doesn't give it to us, but games do. They do it very, very well. So the loop, as I said, very simply, is challenge, accomplishment, followed by reward. So games are masters of this. I'll give you an example. So like in a game like Mario, for example, the first level you get dropped in and you run to the right, and then there becomes a hole, and it presents you with a challenge. Fall in the hole or die or get across the hole. How do you do it? You press the jump button. Great, you just made it past the level, you just feel accomplished. Bang, there's your first hit of dopamine, and then it presents you with the next challenge. Hey, here comes another little monster. He's going to run into you unless you do something. Wait, I already learned how to do this. Bang, I'm going to jump on him. The cycle continues, and this is what games do very, very effectively. So once the challenge is presented, gaming allows you to try out numerous strategies to try and accomplish that challenge. And the important thing about this is that each death or failure in a game does not feel like failure. Now, I think in the last talk, I think someone mentioned, he said the fear of failure, we have to try and get away from the fear of failure. Well, games actually present the perfect platform to get rid of that, because nothing happens in the game without feeling like, oh, I can just restart, or I can just try that again. Oh, I won't do that again. Every step is a step towards success. Nothing feels like it's actually a failure. And we're going to try and bring that into the class. So this is the first kind of thing that we have to try and get our classrooms to do, like this challenge, accomplish, reward system is the first one. The second one is something that's called the F cubed, or the F3 if you will, and it's simply friends, fun, and feedback. And these are the three characteristics of an engaging system. Not just game, but systems, and like your mobile apps take full advantage of this. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. So the first thing we're going to talk about is friends, okay? Not the series, but I'm sure I have we could have an in-depth discussion about that, but friends. So we as humans, we're basically, we're tribal beings, we love companionship and having relationships. So everything that we should be doing today should be collaborative and should be with your friends. Now I understand that in a classroom setting that's not always possible, but the more collaborative we can make it, the more engaging we become with the work that we're currently doing. And the thing is, your kids are already doing this at home and you may not be realizing it. I just want to show you this little app. It's called Discord. This is just the logo for it. But Discord is basically a free application that your kids can use, that they will that they can create free chat rooms and they can create voice chat with themselves, and they will. And I guarantee you, they're already using this. I already know because when I was looking through a kid's laptop, because it got confiscated the other day, he had left it logged in, and I saw the St. Francis students only Discord server. So I can guarantee you that they're not the only ones doing it. Other people are doing it, and the kids, they want to be collaborative with each other. They want to talk to each other, play games with each other, that kind of thing. So taking full effect of being collaborative and friends is something we really, really need to do. So with the idea of being collaborative, the second one is obviously fun. Now, this is easier said than done, but what we should be doing is school should be fun. I mean, realistically, we're learning stuff, we're having a great time. And that's not to say that we should stop working. I'm not trying to suggest that at all, but we have to start thinking are we doing what we need to do in the most engaging, fun way possible for our students? Now, I know you probably don't all actively think this, but again, the problem that I kind of touched on is that the culture of school kind of is the polar opposite of fun. We have to sit down, we have to do our work, not because I want to, miss it, that I have to do it. That's why I'm doing this work right now. But again, if we can make it fun and make it something that they want to do, then again, we can become more engaged with the work that we're actually doing. So a bored learner is not an engaged learner, and that's something that we need to try and shift it into. And the third one, and now I know that this is the hardest one of all for a school system to kind of implement, is feedback. Now, masters are giving you, games are masters of giving you instant feedback. And now I know that school's the polar opposite of that. In school, when we do work, we have to wait for marking to happen, and then we finally know how we did. But in games, and sometimes it can feel like a failure. Not through anything that we've done, it's just the nature of the beast of, well, I have time, I need to mark it obviously very much. But if we can make our work something that we can give them quick and easy feedback, then kids don't feel like they failed if they don't get it right. Because they can go, oh, okay, I wasn't right, I'm going to go away and do it again and I'll present it to you again. So, on that note, I just want to ask you a kind of a question. Why is it that students can really only submit a project once? Now, obviously, other than I'm not talking about you have limited time and programming and everything like that. I'm fully aware of that. But why is it that really at their core, kids can only submit a report, a project once? See, why are essays, like why can't they do it in different forms as well? Again, I know we have rubrics and things that we need to complete, but kids don't learn the same way, and not only do they not learn the same way, they don't express themselves the same way. And technology gives us the perfect platform to express ourselves in different ways. I can make music, I can make videos, I can write it down, I can do all of these movie stings. I can hear you screaming that you only have so much time outside of all of that stuff, but if we let our students resubmit their project, maybe they'll take that project away, the feedback that you gave them, go, this paragraph was not right, you could put some more work in here. Maybe they will actually take that feedback and do what you told them to do, increasing their knowledge, increasing what you're eventually asking them to do. Now, I'm going to cover more how we can do this later when we get to the couple of things we can cover. So I will get to that, I promise you. But this is something that we need to kind of be thinking about, the friends, the fun, the feedback. So the takeaway from those two kind of things, this is kind of an example of the instant feedback we're talking about, playing like a Candy Crush or something like that. Like you take a shot, you know instantly whether or not you're successful. That's a very over-the-top example, but you kind of get what I mean by instant feedback from games. So the takeaway, basically, we need to kind of make things rewarding. We need to make it so that it's collaborative, fun, but also that it gives us some good feedback. We can give them quick feedback. If we can take full advantage of this dopamine loop, make them feel good about the work that they're doing, then we're doing a great job. Now, the final thing before we get on to on the how, this has actually been kind of done before in actually the games industry. And there was the last successful games or educational game was a little game by the name of Where in the World is Carmen San Diego. Now, do we all know this game? I loved it too. Do you know when this was released? It was 1987 was the release date of Carmen San Diego, and it was the last successful edutainment game, successfully commercial, that was released. There have been other edutainment games since, but they've never been as successful as this, where gamers, parents and teachers all agree, this is great, we're going to find something. Now why? Why did that happen? Well, other than the fact that mum and dad kind of got involved in the design, you forget that you need a good game before you have all those other things going on. Kids can kind of smell parental involvement a mile away when it comes to these things. But what about in the real world? What about gamification of your real world? Well, it's already happened before. And I'm going to show you a couple of little examples of this, and then you'll start to see. Okay, so the first one, who has one of these cards, or all of these cards? Flybys, your daily coffee card, or a Woolworths Raw. I've got all three of them. This is the first massive thing. So a Flybys card, what they're doing is they're shaping your behaviour into going to a specific place to use a specific card. Because if I get enough Flybys points, I can get that first class trip to Europe that I've been wanting. Yay! But even though they're giving, all they've done is they've forced you into shops that use Flybys. They're designed to get you engaged with the product that they want you to be engaged with. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the second example is more about status, right? And this is the Amex American Express cards. So we can see these 5 here. Now American Express basically give you a different card based on the amount of spending limit that you can have. But there's no reason for it other than they want to make you feel like you're a poor man or you're the ultra rich man in the world. That's the only reason for it. That if you pull out the Amex Black, it's supposed to be a signal of, hey, yeah, I've got this, whoa, he's got the Amex card. And that's kind of, the status is something we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. And this is very important to kids. This kind of status is really important. Now, the biggest example of gamification in the real world just happened a month ago. This thing. This is Monopoly Macca's. Macca's Monopoly is the biggest example of this kind of gamification in the real world that I can kind of think of. You go to Macca's, you get some tickets, maybe you win a they kept hammering the 1 in 5 as the winner. 1 in 5 if you come to Macca's and buy the tickets, right? But if you take a step back and you have a look at this, right? These are some of the products that Macca's sell. What they're actually doing is, the most amount of tickets from the Macca's Monopoly is actually these ones at the back, is the chips and the post-mixed soft drink. They are basically saying if you want the most tickets to win, you're going to buy large and you're going to buy the chips because they're the cheapest for us to actually make. So the profit margins for them getting them, subconsciously, they don't tell you that that's the case, but subconsciously they're like, if I buy a large, I get 2 or I get 4. And it's something. You know it subconsciously, but they haven't told you anything. The final example is, the second last example is fitness apps. Now Fitbit, take full advantage of this. They've got your step ladder. I've got my little watch on here, so Fitbit, but I have rankings and it ranks you against your friends based on how many steps you did. Great, you're currently coming 5th. Great, I've got to beat Melanie, she's 20,000 steps ahead of me. Nike do this too. They give you a rating based on your activity and stuff. They also give you badges and all this kind of stuff as well. So these are some examples of real world companies already taking effect of it. There's also an app specifically called Zombies Run, and that app is basically, I'm going to be running along with my phone out, the GPS data going, and then all of a sudden it's going to start playing zombie music straight through your phone because it knows, hey, there's a zombie infestation behind you, you better run. And then it tracks your speed as you run, and it gets louder or softer depending on how fast you're actually running. Like, are you actually running away from the zombies? So they're already currently pushing you in these directions, and apps are great at this. And the final example of this is a real world. Who here has ever heard of the piano stairs in Sweden? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you already know what's coming. Basically, this was a standard staircase, and they went, right, we're going to paint it as piano keys. And as you walk up the staircase, every step plays a note. So if you go up, it starts getting higher and higher and higher, and as you come down, it goes lower and lower and lower. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to encourage people to take the staircase rather than the escalator. And what they found was over the month after they actually installed this, it's actually in Brussels, I believe, they noted that there's a 66% increase in people taking the stairs compared to the elevator. So something as simple as, hey, I'm going to play a note, something different, a bit of a novelty, if you will, is already shaping our behaviour in that way. So, spoken a lot about the whys and the hows, but the what. But we're going to have a look at what can we do to actually bring this into the classroom and how can we make it get it there. So the first thing, like the big thing, is what I like is what they call the PBL, which we all know is project-based learning. It's also points, badges, and leaderboards. These are 3 things that you can implement right now without even changing your workload, your work curriculum, or your course structure very, very easily. The great thing about these is that they will change the kids' perception of what it is. So let's dive in with the first one, which is points. Points, or as games refer to them, or as experience points, or XP as I'll be calling them just because it's what everyone says. Now, it's uncommon for games not to give you some kind of leveling bar or some kind of status marker in today's market. So what we need to do is, this is going to be something which I did through the research for this. Now, subconsciously, kids all think of themselves when they start a year or a term, they all think of themselves as an A+ 100% student. I started because we always say, like, we're starting afresh, nothing matters. Like, great, I'm a 100% student. But every test that they get, every project that they receive back, they receive, unless it's perfect, they'll see a 16 out of 20, or they'll see a 5 out of 10. And what subconsciously is happening, that potential mark that I can get is coming down and down and down. Oh, I can't get 100 anymore, I can only get 96. Oh, I can't get 96 anymore, I can only get 85. And subconsciously on a kid's level, as they go further through the year, what science is showing us is that kids start knowing what they're going to get. They already know, well, I'm only going to be getting an E, or I'm going to be getting a C, and I can't better it. I hope they're not getting an E, but you know, the kids subconsciously, especially the kids at the lower end, know they're doing bad. So what points does is we're going to recontextualize it. What we're going to do is we're going to say, rather than starting at 100, you are starting at 0. Right? Everyone starts at 0. And this is an example. This is actually in the Google Drive thing that I shared with you. And this is an example of a leveling sheet. And what it is basically every time that you do something, you get points. You get experience points. So for example, here's an example of what we had. So level 1 is 10 experience points, 20, 40, 70 as we go up. The first and main thing is that leveling at the start should be very easy. You should be giving out experience points and kids should feel like they're leveling up fast. But as we go on, it should get exponentially harder to do. So obviously the first couple of levels, and mobile phones do this, and they are great examples of this. I'll show you in a second how they do it. But the second thing is we should also be rewarding them for every level that they hit. Now what you can do is the reward at the lower levels should be necessities. What are the things they need at those couple of levels? Maybe like a bathroom pass, maybe they're allowed to drink at their desk. Some reward that makes them feel good, like yeah, I made it to level 2 and I get to have my drink. Or something that makes the kids around the table go, God, I want to get my drink on the table, I better make it to level 2, I'm going to try and do it. That's the little things. And then as we go further and further on, we've got level 11, which is the top level here, is they just get a cake. You make it to level 11, here, have a cake, you can have it. Now, something as simple as this though, you may be looking at, oh, that's a bit cheesy, and yeah, it is, but kids love that. Kids, especially in the lower ends, they love this kind of stuff. Now, as you can see, I've got the grey here. The good thing about this system is you don't actually need to change the way you're marking things. You just need to change how you show the kids what it is. And you can hide this from the kids, they don't need to know. But you know that if someone's made it to level 5, they're at least at a D level. If they've made it to levels all the way, they're an A student. You know that. This is just something that you can keep. Now, the other thing is, you should be able to give out bonus XP. And bonus XP are things that kids earn through desired behaviours. So we have things, for example, like paying attention in class. Like, hey, congratulations, here's 3 bonus experience points. Kids like, yes, just for paying attention. Like, being respectful, asking, like, for example, if you know kids maybe aren't that smart, but maybe you want to get them involved in discussions. Like, maybe give them bonus XP for asking a really good question. That's a great question. You can have 2 experience points for that. Yes! Like, get them engaged back in what it is we're doing. The bonus XP is something that is the desired behaviours that we want them to do. Now, there's there was an educator in the States. Her name was Trina. And she was one of the ones I was doing some research on when I was sorting this out. What she did is at the beginning of every day, everyone got 5 experience points just for showing up. Now, you may be saying, well, wait a minute, you can't be giving them something for nothing. But the thing is, this is what's called the appointment dynamic. Okay? And unfortunately, Your mobile phones are already taking full effect of this through games like Candy Crush and all these other things. And it's basically the idea of, hey, you turn up to your appointment, you get the appointment, you get something. Now, the good thing about this is you can make this so that kids can earn experience points. Maybe it's just 5 experience points a day, but you make your leveling structure so that if they turn up every day and just get those 5 bonuses, those 5 experience points, it's not enough to pass the class. It's the bonus XP, it's the project work that actually is what tips them over into the edge. But especially for our kids who are the lower end of the spectrum, those lower kids who may be looking at things like, oh, I don't know, I can't earn things. But if you go, hey, you just get 5 experience points. And if you're good, you can keep those experience points. All of a sudden, they start feeling like they're earning something, even though they're not doing anything that you'd hope they would be doing. You're just giving them something to kind of keep them engaged and keep them there with you. To give you just a little bit of a side story based on just coming back to this thing here. I mentioned that I played a lot of Rocket League. Now, there was a point where I was trying to get from a specific rank to the next rank that should put me in something like the top 5% players of the world. And I grinded out about 20 hours of gameplay over the space of 3 weeks to hit this rank. For no other reason than I wanted to go, I want that level. I want to get to that level. And that is the same effect that everyone and students take. Like, someone's going to say, hey, I want to get to level 5, because if I do, I get the chocolate treat. And I already seen the kids, it's a great chocolate treat, I want it. You're going to have kids who will be like, I'm only 10 XP off of it. I know I am, I can get there. So points is great for kids because they feel like they're getting something even if they're...
What's a mystery scratch?
Oh, this was an example. It could just be something like, hey, it's a mini scratch. It could just be like a little lottery ticket that says, hey, you win a chocolate bar, or like something you already have predetermined. Like I have a whole bunch of things, and maybe you'll win something like that. This kind of something like that. So the appointment dynamic. This is what. Who here kind of seems to remember this kind of thing, playing a game like Candy Crush or something? It's the idea that, hey, I just rocked up and they just start throwing diamonds at you. Hey, here, have some diamonds. Great work, just completed level 1. Have some diamonds, have some diamonds. Everything is literally about getting you to come back and play the game again. So they give you rewards just for showing up. Hey, you came back another day. Here's something. And you came back a day for me. Yeah, some more diamonds. This is the appointment dynamic in life. And unfortunately, in school we don't do it. But we're versing this. This is what kids want to use in a daily thing. So they feel like they come to school and don't get anything. Whereas I go home and I whip out my iPad. Hey, I've just gotten something. Yay! That dopamine effect. Back in loop. Side quests. This is currently coming still on leveling, or as I like to, as you may know them, as extra credit work or homework. But we're just recontextualizing what this is. So the thing is that side quests need to be optional. This has to be optional work that kids can do to get bonus XP. And so this is kind of a little bit different to homework and such. But I was talking to one of the teachers, and that what they do is he had nine problems or 9 things, answers, questions that he wanted his kids to do. 3 of them were easy, 3 of them were a bit longer, and 3 of them were essays. And if the kids did them, they just got bonus XP for having done it. The thing is though, kids being gamers, the first thing that they do is they look for a way to game the system, right? The internet. So saying, hey, do you want to still be connected? So what's not to be? So the main thing, to use another meme, the other thing here being that kids will do this because they know they will look for ways to gain the most experience points. You're telling me I can do 1 question, I'll earn an extra 10 bonus XP? Cool, what do I have to do? Oh, it's 3 lines. Dude, it's 3 lines of work. It's 3 lines. It's all you need to write. You get bonus XP and then you hit that level you wanted. Great! That's what they're going to do. So the thing is to remember though, as I said, it has to be optional. Different to homework, but if you give them work to do outside of things that they can keep them engaged, if you can get them engaged outside of class, then obviously we're doing great, because that means they're still learning in their own time, which is what we want them to do. The next thing, we're back. Okay, so the next thing is, how do we structure it? So the thing is though, games and masters are doing the immediate, the short term, and the long term, which is obviously very similar to what I know, how you've got formative and all the other things. But first of all, as I said, they give you an immediate problem, jump over the gap. They give you a short term goal, get to the end of the level, and then they say, let's use all of that knowledge that we just used to beat Bowser at the end to save the princess, who happens to always be in a different castle for some reason. But one of the teachers at our school, Michael his name is, and he teaches Japanese. What he does is, for his students, he at the end of every lesson gives them a task sheet, and he teaches Japanese, and he gives them a task sheet with 20 Japanese characters on them. And he says he has about 8 levels of these things. And if you can get 15 out of 20, you move on to the next level at the end of the next class. And I asked him, I said, how often can kids retake this? Once a week? And they goes, no, every lesson. They can retake this test every lesson, and if they get 15 out of 20, they move to the next one. And I said, great. And he goes, and what I do is then the higher the levels they go, the easier the project work becomes, because they're already starting to do this work at the end of every lesson. And kids will start to go, oh, he's on level 3 and I'm on level 1. Again, feeding back into this status thing, which we'll talk about in a second. But it leads back to getting that grade, of getting them more engaged and getting them higher things. So something as simple as giving them just a simple, maybe 5 questions at the end of a lesson could be something as simple as that. Now this is the second one, the B, the badges and achievements. And this one here is actually pretty easy to do, and it costs you nothing. So things like Xbox and PlayStation, they're already masters of doing this, and they have figured out that this is one of the great ways is why not just create some badges or to give a feeling of progression to the kids, or this status, and you don't have to give them anything. You can just say, hey, you just earned this badge. Here are a couple of examples, and I got my shoddy Photoshop skills out and I made a couple. So first one, handing in 10 pieces of homework. Good on you, you just won the read all about it achievement. Bang, there you go. That's something that you can now take with you and put on somewhere. Maybe you did 20 pieces of them and you got the you got the extra award. Or how about you want them joining in class discussions, right? Maybe you want them joining in. So you have a kid who has been really good at helping out. Bang, good, you just got the Little Miss Chatterbox achievement. You've been great, you've been helping out discussions. It's fantastic. Or maybe you've got some kids who are, who know that I can earn bonus XP for doing all of this stuff, and maybe they earn 25 XP of just that bonus XP in a week. Great work, you're a game master because you just earned all of that bonus XP. Now these don't give anything extra. They're literally just a status symbol to the kids to say, hey, you just earned this achievement. Now the thing about this badges and achievements though is that they have to be visible, they have to be known to the kids. What can I do to achieve the game master? They will look at it and they go, right, if I can earn 25 XP, I will get that achievement. And yes, they may be playing the game, but that playing the game is altering their behaviour to good classwork, which is what we want. The kind of going on from that, which is the status symbol, which is what we're going to talk about now. So much like the Amex card we've kind of talked about, you can give out for those the kids who do great things or who are the top tier kids, give them a status in your class, right? Let's say, for example, you came first in the maths test last week. Great, you're the grand math wizard of the class. That's their title to be had for anyone. Maybe they finished all of the side quests of level 1 science stuff. Great, you're the Minister of Science. Maybe, let's say again, let's bring it back down to those kids at the lower end. Maybe we have kids who they don't earn these things as quickly as the other kids, but you have one kid who went from maybe earning 3 XP to maybe earning 15 in 1 week. Great, you're the giant slayer. You're the most improved. You're great. You just did great work. You just went from nothing to something, right? These kind of things again cost us nothing to do, but they are everything to the kids, because especially in the lower years they will say, hey, I'm the science master.